Hey everyone, Miss White here, and today we are going to talk about dialogue, especially focusing on how we punctuate dialogue. First of all, I want to show you this awesome YouTube video that I found from mskraushaar, mskraushaar, and it's an awesome video that she made using Powtoon, and I just want to give credit to her in this video. I just wanted to add a little bit to it without having to redo the whole thing. So let's start watching.
You've been working hard on making your narrative into a piece of writing that someone would want to read. You've added a hook to get your readers interested, and you've added sensory details to really make your story pop. You're getting closer to your goal of an awesome narrative, but there's something else you need to consider. Most personal narratives include dialogue, which is the academic way to say that characters speak in your story. Dialogue helps bring that realistic element into your stories and helps the reader relate even more to what's going on in your narrative. It's difficult to tell a good story without dialogue. Otherwise, your readers just have to imagine or infer the conversations that went on in your story. Today's video will teach you two things: how to make your dialogue sound authentic through your word choice, and how to correctly punctuate the dialogue that you do write. First, let's talk about some ideas for writing good dialogue. The first step is
Make sure you write down these tips.
Dialogue. A good rule to follow is to think back on the event you're writing about and to find spots where you, the narrator, are interacting with other characters. For example, let's say you're writing about taking a flight somewhere. I doubt that you made it all the way through the airport to your plane without speaking to anyone at all. Some people you probably spoke to were the customer service person at the counter, the person who scanned your ticket, and the flight attendant once you were on the plane. Let's take the flight attendant, for example. Think about what you said to her or what she said to you. Maybe it's been a while since you experienced what you're writing about. It's okay to do some creative writing here and do your best approximation of what words were said. Let's say we decide that the flight attendant asked you what you'd like to drink. Your conversation might look something like this. As I sat down in my seat, the flight attendant approached me. "Would you like something to drink?" she asked. "Sure, I'll take a Sprite," I said. Notice that this is a little bit more interesting than if I just wrote, "I sat down and the flight attendant asked what I wanted to drink. I asked for a Sprite." You can repeat this technique anytime you feel that the conversation would add something to your essay. Don't try to add dialogue every single time someone might have said something insignificant like, "Do you have change for a $5?" If it's irrelevant or unimportant to the story, leave it out. Next, we're going to talk about how to correctly punctuate dialogue. I'm going to list out some rules for you to follow. Make sure you write them down on your note sheet. Rule number 1. Every time someone is talking, you must surround their words with quotation marks. Quotation marks look like this. Let's take a look back at my conversation with the flight attendant. As I sat down in my seat, the flight attendant approached me. "Would you like something to drink?" she asked. "Sure, I'll take a Sprite," I responded. The first sentence, "as I sat down in my seat, the flight attendant approached me," is not being spoken out loud by any characters, so I don't need quotation marks around it. However, the next sentence is being said out loud by the flight attendant. Therefore, I need to put quotes around where she starts speaking and where she stops. I'll do the same thing with my response, because I'm saying it out loud to her. Notice that I don't put quotes around "she asked" and "I said." That's because you don't actually say those words out loud when you're having a conversation. That brings me to my next rule. Rule number 2. If needed, follow up your dialogue with a tag. The tag are the words that follow what's being said to let you know who said it and how they said it. Let's take a look again at our example. I followed up, "Would you like something to drink?" with the tag, "she asked." That lets me know that the flight attendant is the one asking me about the drink. The tag that follows the next piece of dialogue is "I said." That lets the reader know that the narrator is the one asking for the sprite. Tags help make dialogue a little less confusing. One tip I'm going to give you is to avoid using the word said in your tag. Think of a more interesting way to say it. Replied, yelled, gasped, sighed, muttered, murmured. The possibilities are endless. I used I said when I responded to the flight attendant, so I'm going to change it to I responded. I think that sounds better.
Okay, pause real quick. In your notes, write down as many words that you can use for instead of said. You know, they listed several. Muttered, sighed, cried, announced, whatever. List as many as you can in the next 10 seconds. Go.
The next rule of dialogue that I want to talk about is punctuating the dialogue sentence. Rule number 3. If a dialogue phrase ends with a question mark or an exclamation point, leave the punctuation mark inside the quotations alone. For example, the dialogue sentence, "Would you like a drink?" needs to end with a question mark because it's a question. When I'm writing it in dialogue format, I'm going to leave the question mark alone. I still need to end my tag with a period because it's the end of a sentence. However, if my dialogue sentence would end in a period, if I'm adding a tag, I'll need to change the period to a comma instead. Let's look at the sentence, "Sure, I'll take a Sprite." If that dialogue phrase didn't have a tag, I'd just put a period at the end of it. However, if I want to add a tag, I'll need to take out the period behind Sprite and change it to a comma. Add my tag and end with the period behind my tag. Once again, the rule is, if you're adding a tag to your dialogue, leave the question marks and the exclamation points alone inside of the quotes. Change periods to commas. We're down to our final rule.
Okay, guys, so I need to add an exception to that rule. The rule they said about exclamation points, question marks, leave them alone inside the quotation mark, totally correct. The rule about changing the comma or the period to a comma, totally correct. The thing is she was only referring to when there's a tag at the end of the whole thing. So we want to make sure we know how to do it. What if we start it? Like, if we were to say, Fred replied, "Is it time to go?" Okay. Fred replied, we put the tag, and then we put a comma. Let me change colors here. We put a tag, then we put a comma, then we put open quotes. And my thing stopped writing. Okay. Open quotes, right? We put our dialogue. Okay. Guys, notice the capital letter here, right? Okay, so we want the tag, comma, quotes, capital letter, okay, capital letter, sentence, punctuation, and quotation marks. But guys, even if it's a period here, so if instead of saying, "Is it time to go?" instead of having a question, if I said, "Cancer is scary," okay, I might put a period because it's a statement and close. But wait, it had a tag. You'd still period, then close because the tag was at the start. Okay, so like here, Fred replied, "Cancer is scary," period, close or quotation marks. We want to make sure you understand if the tag is at the beginning, then the rule is a little bit different. Please make sure you understand that, and maybe even, no, not maybe, please add this to your notes. Okay, let's finish the video.
Rule number 4, to use when writing dialogue dialogue is to start a new line every time a new person speaks. This, along with those helpful tags, helps the reader follow along with who is speaking. In our example...
Okay, I have to add something again. Not only do we want a new line, but we need to indent that line. Hit tab when you're on your computer. Hit, whatever. You want to indent your paragraphs. That's kind of important. So not only do you want to switch lines, you want to add a tab.
I start a new line when the flight attendant speaks. When I respond, I skip to a new line so the reader knows that a new person is speaking. This, along with the tags, helps the reader keep it all straight in their head. We're ready to try it out together now. Remember, when writing dialogue, rule number 1, only add dialogue where it would be helpful to add something to the story. Rule number 2, surround what's being said out loud with quotes. Rule number 3, add tags to the end of what's being said to make it clear who is speaking. Try something different than just I said. Rule number 4, when using tags, leave question marks and exclamation points in, but change periods to commas. And rule number 5, start a new line whenever a new person speaks. If you use all of these techniques, you're going to be one step closer to an awesome narrative. Good luck.
Okay, guys. Talk to you later.